getting answers for Western Massachusetts. This is Western Mass News.
Wind chill advisories beginning at midnight and lasting possibly out through midday Saturday. We'll take a look at the details in my first warning forecast.
Plus, support continues to pour in for the high school hockey player seriously injured in a game against a local team. We have the very latest. We're also getting answers for you on the options available for those who live far away from the open vaccine sites or don't have the means to sign up online. And we have a first warning weather alert for you on this Thursday evening as bitter cold temps creep up all over Western Mass. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Western Mass News. I'm Pisano. We have team coverage for you. First warning meteorologist Janna Brown standing by. But first, we turn things over to meteorologist Maher, who's live outside with more on that. Don?
Well, good evening, Chris. Actually, I've moved inside our first warning weather tracker as temperatures have been continuing to drop all evening long. In fact, looking at the temperature gauge right now, down to 24 here in Springfield. But it's the wind. That's what is making it feel that much more uncomfortable out there. I mean, we've been dealing with this wind all afternoon long. We've seen the winds coming out of the northwest at around 15, 20, 25 miles per hour. So when you factor that into the equation, we're already seeing wind chills dipping down below zero, especially in parts of Berkshire County, whereas here in the valley, the wind chills are dropping into the single digits. Of course, the sun went down at 5 p.m. or shortly after 5 p.m., so the temperatures have been steadily dropping ever since, and that's going to continue to be the case as we move through the evening and into the overnight hours, when many of us could see wind chills down below zero. As we wake up tomorrow morning, we could be talking about wind chills anywhere from 5 to 10 below zero here in the valley. In the higher elevations, we could be talking about wind chills as cold as 20, 25 degrees below zero. So when you're talking about wind chills that cold, you're talking about frostbite setting in about 30 minutes. So bottom line, if you're going to be outdoors tonight, tomorrow, limit your time outdoors, cover up that exposed skin. And this may be sticking around for a while. For more on that, let me send it back into the studio and my colleague, meteorologist Janna Brown. And Janna, no doubt about it, this is certainly some of the coldest air we've seen thus far this winter.
Yeah, definitely, Don. It got a little cold there for a few days in December, but January has been incredibly mild compared to where we should have been this time of year. So we're due. Now, wind is occasionally gusting over 20 miles an hour, like Don mentioned. We do have some close to 30-mile-an-hour gusts in the higher terrain, but it's not going to be consistent. However, a breeze of about 10 to 15 miles an hour should be fairly steady overnight. So temperatures right now are starting to fall into those lower 20s for the valley. Teens, of course, in the hill towns where you've been for a while now. And the Berkshires are starting to see clouds decrease. It's a gradual process here, but we have a good chunk of clear sky across the valley, and some beautiful photos of the full moon are already starting to come in. Fair skies overnight, temperatures dipping into the lower and middle single digits, the actual temperature, but the wind chills could fall to as low as 20 below zero, and we do have that wind occasionally gusting a little bit higher than 20 miles an hour. Looking at your hour-by-hour forecast starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow, you can see just that. I mean, we climb steadily throughout the morning, but temperatures only make it into the middle teens tomorrow afternoon. Good sunshine throughout the day with some high thin clouds around later in the afternoon and evening. Now, we've already talked a lot about how to stay safe when it's cold, and this is just common sense for a lot of us, but especially if you work outdoors, if you have kiddos that are taking the bus to and from school still, several layers. Make sure they're loose fitting. Don't wear a lot of tight clothing. That's never good for the blood circulation. Mittens snug at the wrist, better than gloves. Wear a hat. Heat escapes through the top of your head. Stay dry, stay out of the wind, and limit your time outdoors. That is not just for humans. Most of this is good for animals as well. Now we'll take a look at your full forecast and how the cold will start to ease a bit this weekend in just a few minutes. Chris?
Janna, thanks. We continue to follow developments as donations pour in for a high school hockey player who was seriously injured in a game against a local high school team. So far, a GoFundMe for AJ Quetta has already raised more than $400,000. That in the span of just over a day. New England Patriots players, the Boston Bruins, the Travis Roy Foundation, and many others all chipping in. And though we have better news on the status of AJ, this injury has sparked concern among many ice hockey players, coaches, and parents. Western Mass News reporter Kayla Burton joins us live in studio after speaking with a local ice hockey coach. Kayla?
Well, Chris, obviously AJ's injury is a very concerning one. I spoke with assistant coach of the Western Mass Wizards, John Arnold, who says being both a parent and coach himself, this is the most terrifying situation that can happen. This after Bishop Fion's ice hockey senior player AJ Quetta suffered a major injury, crashing headfirst into the corner of the ice rink in his game against Pope Francis Preparatory High School on Tuesday. Quetta was immediately rushed to Springfield's Bay State Medical Center and is currently undergoing treatment. Now, good news, the Quetta family tells Western Mass News his surgery so far has been successful, and they're thankful for the outpouring of support they're receiving. Like any parent, coach, or player, this, as mentioned, is a very frightening situation. Arnold, a coach and parent himself, shares his takeaway with Western Mass News.
As a parent, it's a gut-wrenching thing that you hear. It goes back to teaching the kids to be aware of where they are positionally, where their opponents are on the ice.
Now, Arnold also saying it's important for those players not to fear stepping back onto the ice. Coming up later tonight on Western Mass News, more on how the local hockey community is coming together in support of AJ Quetta. And also just a few moments ago, the Boston Bruins, speaking of money just continuing to pour in, they're announcing the team and its charitable foundation will be donating a minimum of $100,000 to support Quetta. Live in studio, Kayla Burton, Western Mass News.
Kayla, thanks for that live report. The mass vaccination sites in the state are ramping up and booking appointments into mid next week online for those 75 and older. However, here in Western Mass, there are some other COVID-19 vaccine options for those who live farther away from Springfield or for those struggling to use the internet to sign up in the system. Western Mass News reporter Audrey Russo has more.
The mass vaccination site inside the Eastfield Mall isn't open yet, but they are taking appointments online. That is, however, prompting some concern for those over the age of 75 who may not be good with using computers.
My son calls him, Ma, you can get your appointment now.
Rita Mascadrelli tells Western Mass News she tried to sign up for an appointment on Monday at the Eastfield Mall to get her COVID-19 vaccine.
I looked at it, and that's when I said I kind of gave up.
Rita's kids and grandkids were able to help her navigate the online system and book an appointment. But in some communities, it's not as easy.
There is a digital divide. There are individuals, particularly our elders, who do not have access to computers.
Springfield Health and Human Services Commissioner Helen Colton Harris is concerned seniors in the city won't be able to sign up in time.
What we were finding is that individuals in surrounding towns who may have had access were able to sign up, so the slots were going quite quickly.
Governor Charlie Baker announcing plans for a more centralized online system to help people make appointments at the mass vaccine sites. And some legislators are calling for a 24/7 telephone hotline. But there are other options for those eligible living in smaller communities.
We are creating pre-registration lists.
Palmertown manager Ryan McNutt says his town is hosting a vaccine site available to eligible residents in these towns you see on your screen. He says anyone over the age of 65 in these communities should call the senior center in their own town to get put on a waiting list. He says it will work in conjunction with the state's PrepMod planning system.
Based upon how many vaccines we get, we're going to take people that are on that wait list and make appointments for them in PrepMod. And then they'll get contacted about their appointment date.
McNutt says the site will be ready next week at the Converse Middle School building. And while he will be limited to 100 doses per week to start,
we know it's going to expand because we have a huge population burden to inoculate.
The vaccination of people in phase 2 of the state's vaccine rollout plan will begin on Monday. Again, they're prioritizing people 75 and older first. In Springfield, Audrey Russo for Western Mass News.
Western Mass News is your vaccine authority. We're getting answers for your questions surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine and its rollout. Now, a reminder, this is not for signing up to get the vaccine. If you have questions or concerns, you can call us and leave a message at 413-846-0200 or email us at vax@westernmassnews.com. Turning now to the latest coronavirus numbers in our state over the last 2 weeks. The Mass Department of Public Health reports more than 4,000 new cases of COVID-19 today. That brings the total number of confirmed cases to more than 488,000. Just over 78,000 of those are believed to currently be active. And the state also reporting 43 new deaths from the virus. Statewide death toll is now just over 14,000. Now at 6, the Rotary Club of Springfield donated thousands of masks to local partners and first responders. Some of the organizations include the Open Pantry Community Services, Shriners Hospital, the MLK Community Center, and the Gandara Center. The CEO of the Gandara Center says they plan to further distribute the masks through many of their programs.
To people who are most times underserved, particularly the Latino community, that don't have the same access to PPE as other folks might have.
In addition, the Gandara Center will distribute masks to their essential workers.